Mm. Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're watching this live stream from. My name is Nishit Kotak. I'm here with the team from Hindu Academy. If you are new to this show, then welcome. You're in for a treat. This broadcast runs for about 50 to 55 minutes. We meet every week on Saturday, 2 o'clock UK time. And the format of the broadcast is that we start with a little focus topic video. We'll run the video, we'll have a little discussion around the focus topic, and after that we will open up for live Q&A on anything to do with Hinduism. So if you've got any questions, whether it is something to do with beginners, intermediate, or advanced questions on Hinduism, feel free to put them down onto the comments area on YouTube or Facebook, where you may be watching this stream from. We are on youtube.com/Hindu Academy. We are also on Facebook at facebook.com/Hindu Academy. Now, today's focus topic is on the need of Hindu education or Hinduism education. It is now quite obvious that the youngsters of today have disconnected quite a bit from Hinduism in the traditional manner. And so now, how do we reconnect youngsters of today or the young adults of today to Hinduism? So to have a look at this topic, I'm going to share a little video. Then we'll come back and have a discussion with our panel here, and we'll then delve into the topic a little further. So let me just share this video.
Most of the young generation Hindu community doesn't know about their own root and culture of Hinduism. Most of the young generation Hindu community doesn't know about their own root and culture of Hinduism. Only when the Hindu young guys get close to Hinduism and puja or festivals which they come to yearly. So it's not a regular thing that they go to, it's their own annual event and more like a social event. We want a mandatory education on Hinduism for our future generations, because we can't reply constructively when the people who ask about our faith. Is it possible for Dhaka, Bangladesh? Oh, he's Mr. Gupta's from Bangladesh.
Okay. First of all, let me tell you, you see, this nation that we come from, that we love, this idea of Hinduism, India, I have tremendous love for this nation and what it stands for. Now, for 5,000 years, it was kept together because it always focused on spiritual aspiration, never material, trying to conquer other people, rule others, never did that. So always looking at higher aspirations. So this nation was held together because it always looked for higher things and not material things. This is what kept it together. Then, of course, because we did not really grasp religion properly, we were, overpowered by others and kind of ruled by others for 1,000 years. And then, of course, we had independence about 70 years ago. And what did we do? Did we refocus our attention on the thing that was holding us together, was spiritual aspiration, the basic idea of dharma and Hinduism? No. We had the secular guys popping in. I must blame this guy. So Nehru single-handedly pulled out Hinduism, or the constitution pulled out Hinduism from the syllabus of Indian schools and threw it out. So Indian schools can teach other religions but can't teach Hinduism. This is nonsense. The nation was kept together by Hinduism, and you can no longer teach Hinduism in Indian government schools. This is terrible. I can teach Hinduism at every school in the United Kingdom. They are not Hindus. They still let me teach Hinduism, while I can't teach Hinduism at a single Indian government school today. So I've been telling Mr. Modi, please sir, you are refocusing attention on spiritual ideas. Wonderful. Try and reintroduce Hinduism into the syllabus in schools. Make it almost compulsory. In this country, it was compulsory until very recently. Yes. So make it it's not that you're preaching them, you are teaching them their background, their historic ideas, the spiritual aspiration this nation had that held it together, the wonderful values it possesses. So it is necessary for modern India and the government to reintroduce Hinduism into the syllabus as an important aspect to making sure that the next generation is at least, open to the idea of religion and understand the deeper vision of their religion. This will re-empower India in no uncertain terms. Education is the best way.
Amazing, and so very true. So education basically will eradicate, so many things for people. And I think to highlight the need for Hindu religious education. I've got my panel of experts here, led ably by Manish Bhai. Welcome, Manish Bhai.
Namaste, Nishit Bhai. Thank you for introducing me. We have Sita Ben and Vijay Bhai with us, and they will be answering the question, and hopefully I can ask them a few interesting questions. And, we see Jay Bhai has been running this Hindu Academy, trying to run teach Hinduism in schools in United Kingdom last 30 years. And he's been able to plug in these marvelous ideas of Hinduism left, right, and center in all the schools he visited. He visited so many English schools as well, and was welcomed with open arms. And how wonderful it was. And why is this not happening, worldwide? We are 1 billion Hindus, and we are in very good position in society in many countries, but we don't see Hinduism being taught in structured, systematic manner. Why is it not happening, Vijay Bhai?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of factors there. I mean, the key thing is, I think primarily, I talk to my parents sometimes about this, and they tell me that even through the years that they've been in India, you could see that slowly, the Indian culture tradition was taken out syllabus. So obviously, we know at independence, for some reason, Nehru thought that education is, religious education is not part of syllabus. The irony of this is that actually the Indian constitution gives exception to the Islamic tradition, where they can have the madrasas that teach the religion. Hindus cannot. Government will not fund any Hindu education. And by the time India got independence, there's a vast network of Christian schools already existing in India. So they already had the advantage that the schools were teaching Christianity. I mean, even if you ask many Hindus, if they come from India, if you ask them which school did you go, they go to, I go to St. Xavier's and something. So in effect, they already had the advantage. But the decision that Nehru made really put India at a big disadvantage. So by and large, in India, through the last 70 years, slowly you see the culture in religion and culture being rubbed off. And as I said, when I read some old Indian poetry in Gujarati, all these great poets of Gujarat have been removed from the syllabus. It's now out. I think some people know more about Shakespeare than our culture, which is a sad situation we have. So I think it's very, very critical that we teach our children about the Hinduism education. Also, the other factor we have is that many parents who came to the UK to work, I mean, from the struggles of Africa, they left, they came here from wherever, and they were struggling to just make ends meet. So too busy working hard. And all they would say is, do puja, do aarti, do diva, and do, this agarbatti, all this. Now, kids today, my children would not relate to that. That's what is the point of all this? You have to explain in much more detail. I mean, this is where Jay Bhai has done tremendous amount of, benefit to this country by bringing the Hinduism into modern format. And in a way, Hinduism is designed like that. Hinduism requires that we actually evolve with the times. So we are very lucky that we're not a kind of a book-based religion. So we're not stuck in a rut. We need to move forward. And how do you capture the youth? The big disjoint we had between the parents and the youth, this is something Jay Bhai worked really hard to cover. And we made a lot of success. And we're trying to build on the success by having these kind of videos. But I think there's also a lot of other stuff. The other point is that you see there's a lot of subtle messages going out, which kind of puts us already at a disadvantage. The media, you look at the media, in BBC, we have a great struggle. Actually, I was looking at BBC media through a kind of through the ages, and there's hardly any Hindu scholar presenting Hinduism. By and large, any program on temples is some British white scholar, and you wonder what's happening here, right? I think we tried to send Jay Bhai, but they would just not listen to him. So there's a couple of things, and I think even now we see there's a lot of subtle messages. In India, we have a problem because I think even if the government tries, it will have a huge backlash from the other communities because they are missionary religions by nature. So any advantage they have by saying not teaching Hindus is a benefit. So it's a big uphill task, and I think this is what Jay Bhai works tirelessly day and night to try and break this and still get our message through. Despite all these obstacles, worked tremendously hard, and I think he spent a lot of time, which is a big amount of work he's done. we just need to build on that. So yeah, it's a tough challenge for us. Sita.
Yeah, no, I think you've covered it amazingly. I mean, that's actually the gap that Dad noticed. For example, when I was like 4 years old, he was looking around for somewhere to teach Hinduism and he couldn't find anything. You could find hundreds of Gujarati schools and this school, that school, but never anything to teach Hinduism. And that's why he sort of started off on this journey, because he would tell me stories of Hinduism as my bedtime stories. And then my mum said, why don't you sort of start teaching it yourself, teaching small children about Hinduism? And he said, no, I can't do it. But then it started off on an extremely small scale, just three little girls, as we have said before. And that's how the whole thing sort of started, because there is still a need, there is a gap. And as Vijay was saying, the modern generations are very different from previous generations where, you know, your parents told you to do arati, to do puja, and you would just do it without really sort of questioning it. But because I think maybe, you know, a lot of Hindu youngsters are growing up in the diaspora, they're being exposed to all of these kinds of different ways of educating themselves by asking, why do you do these things? They then come to their parents and say, why do we do these things? And if the parents don't give a structured answer, they are just going to run away, and they have been running away, unfortunately. And Hinduism is something that a lot of people sort of shy away from talking about with their friends because they feel, oh, it's such a weird religion. It's actually, they see it as a weakness of their inheritance, whereas it's the greatest strength. And as my dad has been promoting hugely, is this idea that there is a need to evolve away from, you know, all the sort of traditional Hinduism and focus more on the relevance with science, the relevance with the latest findings of quantum, the latest findings about consciousness, how all of these things are actually intrinsic within Hindu philosophy. And if you expose children to that side of things rather than the sort of mechanistic rituals, they will be so much more open to it, because everyone loves the idea of spirituality, but people don't really like the idea of religion and what sort of bogs them down, this idea of thinking of God in the heaven. Just think of everything as being spiritual, and that's the way to sort of attract the younger generations to Hinduism.
Wonderful answer, Sita Ben, Vijay Bhai. So, you know, to sum it up, our YouTube channel, the top 10 video, one of the video that is most popular is the question about what is the difference between Hinduism and Sanatana Dharma. And if we look at our, you know, viewer figures, 65% of them is from India, and they are over 25, 30. And this is one of our top 10 video. This goes to show us how much ignorance of Hinduism is out there. And there is a big need to educate people. And why do we need to teach? What is the, you know, specific good things about Hinduism that makes it more very relevant for this day and age, Sita Ben?
Yeah, I mean, as Dad was saying in the video, it's not about preaching Hinduism to the younger generation. It's just sort of exposing them to it, telling them this is what there is in our inheritance, in our tradition. If you like it, go for it. If you don't like it, find another way. There's no sort of imposition from us. But as long as it's taught in that way and not as sort of, you know, wagging your finger at them saying you must do this, then, you know, it creates a much more sort of open relationship to their idea of religion. It's not something that's an imposition. It's something that is naturally inherited as part of their tradition. So you have to be very careful not to be too sort of strict about all of these rules and rituals. And as I was just saying, there's so much that Hinduism has to offer besides the traditional going to the temple and worshipping a god with form, which a lot of the younger generations are not that sort of interested in. I mean, generations and generations, hundreds of years have gone by with, you know, people loving this idea of God with form, and there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. If you are attached to that particular form of God, then that's totally fine. But many younger generations are not interested, as Vijay was saying, in sitting down and doing puja every morning. They're just not interested. They like the idea of, within Hinduism, we often forget this idea of spiritual humanism, seeing the divinity in those around you, doing something for people because it's not an imposition from God, but because it's the most natural thing that you can do. And also these kind of where science is sort of hitting a roadblock in terms of materialism and materialistic approaches, trying to understand that actually Hindu philosophy does talk about the different way of looking at the world as not just being sort of analysing small bricks and smaller versions of bricks, looking at it from a much more systemic approach, look at the whole universe as not just little bricks that are sort of independent of each other, but it's like a whole web of life. And when you sort of present that actually this is what the idea of Brahman is, this is idea of web of life, the interconnectedness, rather than looking for the material building blocks, then Hindu youngsters will say, really, that's what we're all about? And it is. And as long as we sort of expose them to that, then hopefully they will take up those ideas and make them their own. Vijay Bhai? Oh, I think you've on mute.
Yes, Sita, I think you've covered it brilliantly. I mean, that's the main thing, that how do you present this in a modern format? And I think the richness and the depth and breadth of Hinduism can be exposed in such a way that we don't impose it on the children. Let them take the facts up and then think for themselves and decide what of that much they like and use in their lives to make them more spiritual. That's the whole idea, I think, in this. And I think that's all I can add on that. But yeah, Sita, pretty much well covered, yeah.
Vijay Bhai, could you please summarize main ideas that are very relevant, just quickly, if you please.
So I think the modern world, part of the things we have to cover, main ideas, I think pluralism is very important. I mean, keep on hearing that, we should tolerate other religions. And I hate that, because I've been to many interfaith dialogue. I should be very tolerant. Now, tolerant is very, insulting. It's like saying, I don't really like you, but I'll live with it. That's kind of the attitude. Show respect and dignity for other religions. That's the key thing. So pluralism is a very big part. The idea of spiritual democracy is very important. Respect for other views. That's the main thing. And this is something that, even despite all the moral information on the internet, is still sorely lacks. These are kind of the key ideas, I think, that we really have to work on. Yes, and that's what I can really add on that. Yeah.
And as Sita Ben said, spiritual humanism comes tops as well, and nothing can do that once the youngsters relate to it. It divinifies the whole way of looking at things, and that's wonderful. And that's something Jai Bhai focused on. And what Jai Bhai started is teaching at Hinduism in structured manner at Eton College. How important is this, Sita Ben? And also, why are not many other colleges and schools doing this? Sita Ben?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're very lucky that Eton College has got such an open culture, even though it's such a very old traditional school. It's an institution in itself. The fact that they have sort of opened their doors to not just Christianity, but to other faiths is a wonderful step. And it should be used as an example for other schools, other institutions to say, it's not just about Christian education. There are lots of other religions and other faiths as well. And it's not, a case of, 200 years ago, there were only Christian boys at Eton. Now it's an international school. There are people from all over the world, the Far East, all the way to America and everything. So there is a need to sort of integrate and take on a more sort of global approach. And I mean, from my experience, the boys have been extremely welcoming. Their questions are very, very good, and it makes you wonder that hopefully, because it's there is a history of a lot of sort of politicians and all of that coming from Eton, so hopefully this kind of thinking can sort of infiltrate the government of the future or the high positions of the future, like CEOs of big corporates, who knows. But if they've kind of been grown on these beautiful ideas, they may be able to influence their decisions accordingly and have a more sort of spiritual approach than previous sort of generations. So hopefully it's a good step forward. Vijay Bhai, I don't know if you have anything to add.
I think you've covered it pretty well, Sita. Yeah, very good. Yeah.
Yes. So Vijay Bhai, we see this private college teaching Hinduism, and we have so many private schools and colleges in India. Why are they not teaching? And should they not teach Hinduism in structured manner in such a way?
I think a lot of private, unfortunately, that's the other part. It's again legacy of independence, because for somehow they've been, as I said, a very conscious kind of attempt to play down the Hinduism faith and far more focus on secularism. The question is, what does secularism actually mean? Yeah, teaching Hinduism does not negate secularism, but that's how it's been seen. So a lot of private schools are in the business of making money. When I talk to a lot of Hindu children in India, they say, yeah, I want to become a doctor, scientist. I'm not really concerned about religion. So they've been kind of snuffed out. That stream of thought has been so kind of snuffed out. Even the private schools will be into making money. There's no harm in teaching Hindu. They can teach. Private schools are not bound kind of by government, kind of, not to teach. They can teach, but then again, what do they teach? Because they teach their own syllabus. There's no syllabus across the country-wide, structured syllabus like we have here. So what do they teach? So that's the other issue. But there are gurukuls, I know, which do teach Hinduism, and I visited some of them. So there they would teach about Hinduism. But by and large, there are very many private schools who are totally focused on sciences, career-based education. And that's what partly driven by money. So I think the ethos, the dharmic ethos, somehow has to be reintroduced into India, the Hindu dharma ethos. Then I think this will all come into play. The mindset has to change, which has been kind of shifted away from the idea of spiritual humanism to a Dilip Bhai says material humanism. We want to shift it back in India to spiritual. Then all these things will seep in again. That's the challenge we have. Yes, Sita.
Yeah, I mean, actually, just a couple of weeks ago, we were approached by somebody in India who really wants to sort of help us, sort of infiltrate the schools and sort of find a way of teaching Hinduism in Indian government schools. And it's just so ironic that in India, which is the home of this religion, you can't teach Hinduism as Hinduism. So he was suggesting that, we kind of brand it as spirituality, teaching of spirituality, just to get the idea across, just to kind of get around the system essentially, which is crazy. Why should you have to do that in the first place? But yeah, so, hopefully it's a sign that people in India are sort of opening up to the idea of understanding a bit more about their spiritual inheritance and trying to, develop a proper understanding of it. Because after a while, this sort of materialistic approach that India has adopted in the last sort of 50 years, people do start getting tired of it. And it's sort of inbuilt in the Indian mindset to have a more spiritual approach to living for thousands of years. That's how we have lived. And we kind of try and divinify everything. Before we do anything, we do a puja, we do something. It's just ingrained in the Hindu mindset. And to sort of fling it all away in the name of materialism and a more secular approach, it just feels like, what a waste. So hopefully India will sort of change that sort of thinking and become more spiritual. And hopefully with the way that the current government is, that will start to happen. But these things do take a long time to happen.
Wonderful answer. So Nikhil Desmukh has asked an interesting question. He's saying if secularism removing will cost badly, most of my friends are unnecessarily Islamophobic. And what he's trying to say is, if we teach Hinduism, will these people then be Islamophobic and be hardline Hindus and try to, say Hinduism is the only way? Or is there a problem there, Sitaben?
No, of course not. I mean, if you learn the sort of basics of Hinduism, it's on our e-learning course, the basics of Hinduism. As Vijay Bhai was saying, pluralism is the key message of Hinduism, which is incredibly relevant to the world today. So rather than becoming sort of, phobic or afraid of other religions, you see them as being a welcome sort of partner in making spiritual progress. It opens you up rather than closes your mind. It opens your mind because it says there are such a wide range of approaches, not just, between different religions within Hinduism, within even non-religious approaches, which we have talked about before. And so learning about your religion is not imposing your religion on people. It's just presenting what we have. If you like it, then please enjoy it. And if you don't like it, then find your own way of living your spiritual life, whether it be music or art. But make sure that you don't close your mind off. Just be open to it, and it will make you more open. The more you sort of progress on your journey, the more open-minded you will become. Vijay?
Yeah, I think, Manish, that's a very interesting question. The key thing is actually that's the other issue we have. By taking out all religions from all schools in India, it is true. Because I have read enough about Islam to get some basic understanding. There's a lot of Islamophobia because they don't understand Islam properly. The reason is because that is not even taught either in government schools. So when I go to talk to Hindus, they say, yeah, Islam. I say, well, have you read Islam? No, they haven't. So in effect, like in the UK, we are very lucky because, in the schools, we are one year taught about all religions. So they have a good idea of all religions. So that's the basic foundation. Okay, understanding what Islam is, Zoroastrianism is, Christianity is. But India don't even have that. So I think it's ironic by saying secularism, we are a very secular country, and removing all religions from school has also got the other effect. Not only that Hindu is not taught, people have misconceptions about other religions. Same with Christians or Islamic Muslims have misconceptions about Hinduism as well. They don't talk about this. And when they talk about it, it's always biased. So it's quite important. It's not to, as Sita mentioned, that we don't want to preach Hinduism. We want to give a structured understanding of religions. So actually, India will benefit by teaching all these religions in a structure, not only Hinduism, then Islamophobia will partly go away. So when you say secularism, what do you mean? It doesn't make sense. Secularism is remove religion. It doesn't make sense at all. On the contrary, it should be taught even more because if you're living in a diverse society, you get an understanding of other religions. So it is a benefit. So I think partly Islamophobia, you can blame again the idea of secularism with no religion at all. That's the reason why this is also coming in. So I hope that helps to answer Nikhil's Deshmukh's question. Yeah.
Wonderful answer, Vijay Bhai. So next question is relevant to, I think, what you just said. Same person, Nikhil Deshmukh, has asked, how can we separate Hindu religion and politics? Now, so Vijay Bhai.
Yeah, okay, interesting question. Look, I'll tell you what the problem is. Again, this is my own analysis. You can take what you feel. See, the problem we have in India, there's this perceived, I'm not sure if it's really the case, but there's perceived bias. Partly, many Hindus have to believe that Hindus are being treated unfairly because, example one is that they're not taught about religion in schools, whereas madrasas are taught, and Christian, there's so many private taught. So they already feel a disadvantage. And plus, all the Hindu temples are controlled by the government, but the Christian churches, they're controlled by private bodies, they control themselves. So Hindus already feel that, look, being a Hindu is a disadvantage. That may be true or not false, I'm not going to challenge that. But that normally creates, then people will use Hinduism obviously. They say, look, politicians want to get votes, right? So they say, look, Hindus are struggling badly, look what's happening here. Look in Kerala, Hindus are being forced to convert. Look here, people are struggling. They can use all this information, whether it's true or doesn't matter. They will use it to get votes. So what you need to do in India is create a level playing field. For example, all schools should teach Hinduism, or all schools teach all religions, all temples should go by the government, have one for everybody. Because in India, you have civic law as well, right? The law is different. For example, you have Islamic personal law, we have Hindu law. When you have that, people will say this bias. They say, look, they can get that. They can get this much money. They can get special, special rights. We don't. It doesn't matter if it's true or not. The fact there's a difference is people will use the differences to get people to vote for them. So the only way to separate this is like in the UK, where we should totally separate. We say, look, we teach religion in school, but everybody should have an equal playing field in everything, in law, in terms of what they control. If everything, then people can't complain. I'll give you an example also. This is my experience in May 1986. Around that time when I was in India, I was young. And this Shah Banu case happened about this Islamic lady who the Supreme Court forced her husband to pay alimony. But then the law was changed by the Rahul Gandhi government to say, no, the state will pay alimony. Now, it may not be that big thing, maybe only a few women who get alimony from the state. But politicians use that to the advantage, saying, look, your tax money is going to go to fund Muslim leaders. It doesn't matter whether it's really a big issue or not. Maybe very few, people are benefiting. The hardly any dent on the taxes. It doesn't matter. When you have this uneven playing field, this is where police like to go and get something out of it. Yes, look, you're suffering, you're being misused, and they will play. So India needs to create level playing field in everything, like circular law, circular code, everything should be the same. Then things will get better. Otherwise, police always use this. I mean, you can't blame them. They won't both try to stay in power. They're greedy for power. If they can use religion, politics, they will use it. So it's on us to force the government to remove these anomalies that they are there. Then things will change. Yeah. That's all I can add on that. Sita, it's a tricky question actually. Sita?
Yeah, it really is. I mean, it just because my personal experience, I have more sort of understanding of the UK and the way that the UK government operates, and it makes me think, because without the sort of tops and tails of religion or spirituality, the UK government is sort of promoting a spiritual way of living by having these basic standards of living. Anyone who comes to this country has access to free education, free healthcare, free housing. And there's no sort of, tops and tails of, because God told us to, that's why we have to do this. It's just in the name of democracy, the name of basic human rights, that we're able to have this basic standard of living. And that's why people are scrambling to come to the UK, because we have this amazing safety net for all individuals. Humanity and human life is sacred. And without even giving it the name of spirituality, it's actually a very spiritual approach. So if, governments around the world can adopt a similar approach, then that's essentially spiritual living, and how, spirituality can infuse politics and the way that life is led.
Fabulous. Folks, can you believe it's almost been 30 minutes since we started this discussion, and it can go on and on and on. And there are so many facets around this particular topic. But I think there were quite a few key takeaways. And I think one of them would be there is definitely a need for change. What we've been doing so far hasn't worked, maybe. So maybe time to look at an alternative approach. What that approach maybe is open to discussion yet. But it is clear time for change is here now. Speaking of change, so I have something very interesting to celebrate with you all. So if you've been following the channel for a while now, you would know that from around October, November, I had been requesting you all to subscribe to the channel, because we were getting very close to 100,000 subscribers, which is a milestone that we celebrate with YouTube today. So we got this thing, which is the YouTube silver plaque that we get for getting to 100,000. And so what we're going to be doing is, as a way to celebrate, we'll be unboxing this live with the viewers. So you can join us in the celebrations. And let's have a first look at what's in this. So there we go. It's a nice little box. Comes with a foam cover. And we have a letter here from YouTube. And it is signed off by Susan, who is the CEO of YouTube, saying that, congratulations that we are on our 100,000 subscriber. And we have got this wonderful commemorative plaque. I will just show this to you all shortly. So that is the silver play button that has been sent over to Hindu Academy on getting to 100,000 subscribers. So congratulations to the team here for the fantastic job they've been doing over the past few years. I have just been involved, I believe, for the past 3.5, 4 years maybe, but the rest of the team have been around for a much longer time. And Jay-Bhai, of course, had done this for over 30 years to lead up to this. So this is an accolade, a tribute to him, and just a way of saying thank you to all the subscribers who've been with us over the years. I see some of you every week turning up. We really appreciate your support as always. Now, before I move back to the Q&A session, I just want to share some of our resources because I think when we're talking about education, it is important that you find yourself with the right tools to educate yourself. And so we've got some tools that you can use. Let me share. So what we have got is, we've got a Basics of Hinduism course, and that is on a link I will put into the chat. We have about 7,800 students enrolled. I want to get to 10,000 on that. It's an amazing course. But there is also a second course, which is for GCSE students. It's the Advanced Hinduism course. And what I will say is that we currently have live training for students who are going to sit for the GCSE exam on Hinduism. And so we do Zoom classes every Sunday. And I can share details. If you want the details, please just request them from us. And the last thing, of course, is our website, where you can join the WhatsApp groups and get some daily dose of goodness. We'll send you some short clips every day. If you want to submit a question, you can submit a question here. You can download the ebooks for Hinduism here, and there is various other things. You can sign up for the Hinduism course here, etc. Hello, everybody. This is Nishit Kotak. Those are a couple of the quick resources that I can share with you. And we move on to the rest of the Q&A. Let me just ask one question. So Farhan Ahmed has asked a question. Is there a concept of sin in Hinduism? And is morality objective or subjective according to the various schools of Hinduism?
Yeah, so I think one thing is very important to remember in Hinduism, there's a very big distinction between the idea of the philosophical aspects and the aspects of morality, the law books that we call them. And yes, it is subjective to a great extent, in the sense that, of course, the basic ideas of humanity, that of course, are universal. But by and large, what is moral, what is not moral, it is quite subjective, because depending on society you come from, or the age or the time you live in, of course, it will vary, it cannot be the same. But I think one thing to mention is that in the idea of Hinduism, or at least in all the Indic faith, the idea of moksha, you don't carry your body or morals with you up there. So you're not going to leave those morals of that body. It's basically a state of existence where it transcends the human qualities we have, like good, bad, pleasure, pain, morality. All that is transcended. You transcend that. So in Hinduism, the idea that somebody is immoral, he will not go to heaven, doesn't make sense. What I'm saying is I'm not saying it's not important. Morality is important for society at large, or at least some structure or some moral code, because it helps you to progress spiritually. So it is important insofar as it helps you to progress spiritually. That's it. You cannot use a moral code to say somebody achieved moksha. It doesn't. Moksha is self-realization, and you have to transcend everything. Doesn't matter. That's why I think we say that good, bad, everything is transcended. So in this, it's the idea of morality is subjective. The idea of sin is, I would say, in modern day and age, is breaking the law is sin. There is no sin as such in terms of any fixed sin as such in Hinduism, that is eternal sin, that if you do this, you have sinned. It changes. What is bad, what is changes with times. So I would say, by and large, if you follow the law, then I think of law of the country you are in, then of course, again, you have to be very careful, because if it defies your own, if you defies your own conscience, then sometimes even law is not good, because some countries, those are very negative towards the LGBT community. Then you can say, look, my conscience doesn't allow me to do that. That's a different thing. But by and large, the idea of sin is, again, what is bad in a particular society. There is no fixed ordained. There are books, no doubt, but they change with the times, as the law books we have. There's no fixed sense of sin as such. Only good and bad, I would say that. Sita?
Yeah, and I think you've covered it amazingly. I think the really important thing to remember is that we do not think that anyone is a sinner. We think that we are all essentially spirit. So nobody should ever be labeled a sinner according to Hinduism. there are sort of, different sort of ethical and moral sort of challenges that come up in everyday life. You get things like abortion, euthanasia, all of these come with a great deal of ethical and moral sort of questions. But what Hinduism says is that you are spirit. So let your conscience be your guide and let that guide you. Whatever sort of takes you towards your true nature, whatever makes you feel uplifted and inspired, take that as the right way. And whatever sort of makes you feel less of yourself is considered to be maybe not the right way. So there is no such sort of compartmentalizing of this is good and this is bad. Ultimately, we recognize that life is extremely complex, but remember that we are all the spirit and we're all sort of making our way towards understanding who we truly are. So no one is a sinner. We just have to try and make the best of every situation that we can and try and get closer to understanding that we are the spirit, essentially.
Willis.
Well, answer. Vijay White, you want to ask for the question?
Oh, you're on mute.
No, see, Manish, I've covered that question. So yeah, let's go to the next one. Yeah.
Fantastic. So we have another question here from Mayank Pandya, and he's asking if you could explain the Dvait Advait Siddhanta. Does it in any way equate the demigods to the supreme personality of Godhead?
Oh, I didn't see the link there, but okay. So yeah, the Dvait Advait Vedanta is basically this. The idea of Advait is actually something that Shankaracharya, I think 800 AD, promoted quite a lot. And the Advait system is basically principle based, and that there's only one ultimate reality. That's what Advait means, not two. Advait means two. Means not two, so not dual. So Shankara promoted the idea that ultimately there's only one supreme truth, which is the idea of the Brahman. Brahman and Atman are the same in the Shankara tradition, in a very short manner, in a short kind of answer. And the Dvait idea is two, where you have duality, where the Paramatman and the Atman, where Atman is seen as us and Paramatman is seen as God, and it will be a relation to that God. So there's two dualities, they're different, not the same. And that's the main basis of that. So again, the God and demigods, I think that there's no link as such, because God and demigods are popular in every tradition as such. But ultimately, philosophically, these are two key ideas. The idea of one ultimate supreme truth, and one is God and man are separate. That's the key ideas at a philosophical level. So God is worshipped at a kind of bhakti marg level. Yeah. Asita, man.
I think you've covered it amazingly. So this idea of Dvait is, as Vijay was saying, the idea of you think yourself as being separate to God, and you use such a variety of different forms of God within Hinduism, for example, to build a relationship with that particular form of God. And we sort of superimpose the kind of human relationships that we are used to, like mother, father, friend, and we superimpose that onto God because that's something that we're familiar with. So we superimpose that onto building a relationship with God. So that's one approach. And the second approach is the Advait approach, where everything is essentially spirit. Everything is a manifestation. Every spirit is percolating through everything. And the approach is very different because you don't build a relationship with a personal God. You see everything as divine, and it elevates the whole living kingdom, the whole universe, to the level of divinity. So your terms of engagement remain the same. You know, you carry on going to work, you carry on looking after your children or your parents. Everything stays the same, but everything is divinified. And it's all about sort of recognizing that you are spirit and everyone around you is spirit. So do what you can to support the spirit that's living around you. And there's no sort of, imposition from God that you must do good to other people. It's because it's the most natural thing you can do to support those around you.
Wonderful answer, Sita Ben, divinifying the whole of the universe and creation. Wonderful stuff. We got an interesting question. One of the viewers saying, some of the Vaishnavas say that Krishna is superior to Shiva, and they point to Bhagavad Gita. In Bhagavad Gita, chapter 18, it says, Krishna says, first of all, he shows the Virat Swarup, where he's showing he is the Brahman, Param Atman. And second, he says, Mam ekam saranam rajam, sarva dharman parityajam, mam ekam saranam rajam. So Krishna is clearly saying Bhagavad Gita, I am Brahman and Paramatman. And second, only through me can you achieve moksha. Is it right to say, or can one worship Shiva in the same way as well, Sita-ben?
Yes, I mean, the Bhagavad Gita is, it's a beautiful text, and it's a central text of Hinduism, essentially. And it's our sort of go-to guide for understanding how to put religion into practice in our everyday lives. But remember, the Bhagavad Gita also talks about pluralism. It talks about the different pathways of making spiritual progress. It talks about bhakti yoga, yes, devotion to Krishna, but it also talks about karma yoga, jnana yoga, raja yoga. It talks about all the different pathways to God. So I think this is the thing, is sometimes when you read it out of context, it can kind of give a different sort of implication. So we have to remember that the Bhagavad Gita advocates the idea of pluralism. Yes, it talks about Krishna because Krishna is like the central character in he's the one who's narrating this wonderful scripture. But we have to remember that Hinduism is intrinsically pluralistic. There are such a wide range of approaches. And for Shiva devotees, I feel like sometimes they get a bit sort of left on the back burner, and it's not really fair, because for Shiva devotees, Shiva is not the one who's just the destroyer, because everyone is given nice roles, like Vishnu is the preserver and all of that. And Shiva is the one who's labeled a destroyer, and it's really not fair. So Shiva devotees like to think of Shiva as the creator, preserver, and destroyer. And that's shown very much in the Nataraj image, the Lord of the Dance. And Shiva approach is very different to the Vaishnava approach, as in it's much more focused on renunciation, meditation, and the Vaishnava approach is more sort of, a bit more sort of glossed, a bit more glossy, as in the way that God is presented as Vishnu and Krishna, and they look so bright and illumined. And when you look at Shiva, poor Shiva doesn't have any nice jewelry or anything. So it's a very, very different approach, and it's not right for one path to undermine the other path. Let them all sit well together, and that's the sort of the beauty of Hinduism, is let all the paths sit beautifully together rather than fighting over them. Vijay Bhai?
Yeah, I think I've heard that as well, Manish, by some saying that, look, Krishna says that. But the way I see it is, in that Gita slok, Krishna says actually, whoever comes to me in whatsoever way, I accept thee. Whatsoever way to me means also, if you look at Krishna as Shiva, right? Or as, Mother Goddess. It doesn't matter, it's whatsoever way, whatsoever swarup you choose. Krishna is not saying only my specific image. Anybody comes to me in whatsoever, in any form, that's how I read it anyway. So that particular part. But I think, having said that, I think partly, I guess the idea, we say Vaishnava say Hari, one who attracts with all this gold jewelry. It looks very attractive, pulls people. And Hara means renounce, is Shiva tradition, renounce. But I think maybe that's perhaps people see that Hari attracts and people get more, as Sita says, a more glossy kind of, cover. But to be fair to the Shaivaites have produced a vast amount of literature from Kashmir Shaivism, Shaiva Siddhanta. There's so much literature in Shiva. Shiva is also very ancient. So I think the idea, we should try and stay away from that game some people might be playing, that I'm superior to others. Fine. Your God is superior to you, that's okay. But not necessarily for others, as the story that Sita mentioned about two boys playing. But the key thing is, remember that never play that game that he can never be up to me. No, your own way is good for you, and somebody else's way is good for them, and let's leave it there. Yeah.
Wonderful answer. Agree with Vijay Bhai there. A Christian saying their way is the only way. Muslims are saying same. And there's no point in fighting. Everyone choose their own path and go to the destination. And that's what matters, not fighting about it. Reach the destination, and that will be it. We got another question from Devjit. He's asking, did Sri Krishna really exist, and is everything written in our holy book, the Bhagavad Gita, true? Vijay Bhai?
Okay, there's two parts to this question. Okay, first of all, of course, we can't say authentically, like peer-reviewed work saying that Krishna really existed. You can't have that kind of modern scientific analysis. But by and large, my understanding is that Krishna, even Rama, I'm fairly certain the historical figures, because for so many ages, the information has been passed down. The characters have been kind of used to emulate that kind of character. People want to become like him or want to see a greatness in them. So it's been passed for thousands of years. So I'm fairly certain that these characters are historical figures. But of course, not in the sense that they were wearing perhaps silk clothes and there's great gold cities built at that time. We didn't have enough gold to build whole gold cities. So that may be not true. Because of course people take bits out, add things out. So in that sense, you can't say the way we see Krishna perhaps today and the way we kind of promote him and the way we accelerate, maybe not. But historic figure, I'm fairly certain that by and large is a true figure. That's my own understanding from what I analyze. But the Gita, when you say what is true, Gita it doesn't talk about stories, it's mainly about philosophical texts. So the idea is true is the question on how are you going to approach the Gita and how are you going to implement it in your life. So Gita, like 4 pathways to moksha are experiential. So if you want to prove that to be true, you have to experience those paths, right? So Krishna, Bhagavad Gita is purely a spiritual guide more than anything else. So it's not a historical fact as such that you prove a physical fact. It's based on how to progress spiritually. So this is in this case, at least for the Indic tradition, one of the best tools we have. And Gita is brilliant. I mean, you know, I'll share something interesting with you. When my students get a question in exams and they're asked any question like, you know, do Hindus believe in this? And do you please explain why Hindus believe in this? I tell them just quote the Gita because the Gita says so. And by and large, they'll be right because somewhere in the Gita, the answer will be there, right? So Gita is an amazing, broad, diverse book because all facets of Hinduism, but all on a kind of on a philosophical level and more like how do you apply philosophy practically? Gita, in my view, is seen as a book that implements the Upanishads in a practical manner. And I've seen Gita, I only see Gita as 3 things. I call them head, heart, and hands. Karma, heart, and head, think. These 3 things are what is Gita is all about. Use those 3 tools to progress. Yeah. Sita?
Yeah, no, that really reminds me. I know that you and Dad were talking about, when you answer the questions on Hinduism, if you just say the Bhagavad Gita says so, then it's just like, yes, it's fine. It's really funny. I remember that because I remember doing the exam and doing that as well. But yes, I mean, Bhagavad Gita is considered to be a synthesis and a summary of the Vedas and Upanishads. So in that sense, as Vijay Bhai said, it's a Shruti scripture, it's a text of authority. And in the sense that, maybe the context may be part of the mythology in terms of the Arjun having a discussion with Krishna, that may be mythology, but the spiritual depth that's part of the book included in the Bhagavad Gita is, it's Sanatan, it's eternal and universal. So that's the beauty of the Bhagavad Gita, and it's definitely a very good go-to place for how to put religion into practice in our everyday lives.
Wonderful answer, Sita-Ben. We take one more question before we finish for the day. Farhan Ahmed has asked, is there one translation of Gita that all schools of Hinduism agree to? No, there isn't one. There are so many translations. There are thousands of explanations on Bhagavad Gita and maybe more. So I don't think Hindus will agree to one. Different sampradayas will adopt different approaches, and that's fine. That's the spiritual democracy we have. We agree to disagree and we agree to approach it in different manner. So one question I had is this idea of personal God. If we say this personal God created everything and not even a leaf moves without his wishes, then how can we say that we are independent from it and we can do anything independently? So are we then just a puppet, or what you call, does he then send us to heaven or hell or moksha, give us a moksha? Because then we are basically not enabled. Vijay Bhai?
This is a very eternal question. I think the question at the root is this: is our life deterministic or is it free will? That's the root question here, right? If we say that life is determined by God, nothing moves by a single leaf moves by God. That means if you're committing any bad deeds, I won't say sin because we don't talk of sins, but any bad things or negative, karma, good, everything God is doing. So, everything's hunky-dory. So why should you bother, right? We're living. And the other question is, if you got free will, to do everything is, and then God doesn't have control over us. We can do what we want without God controlling. This is a very eternal question. It's not a new question. Ironically, Shankaracharya had an answer for this one, which is that they're both apparent. You're already free. You know what you're living in this world. All these things you're doing determines free will. Is a very superficial thing. It doesn't exist. It's just a way to describe things. But ultimately, you're already free. You just need to find that you're free. You're stuck in this realm of Maya. That's the kind of answer that it's given. But I think the key question is, I would quote here, the Nashadiya Sukta is very interesting, because Nashadiya Sukta in the Rig Veda actually states that even the gods came after creation. A very interesting thing to think about, because look, when you think about God, we are thinking God in a space of realm and time, right? We know before the creation, there was no space and time. So you couldn't think of gods. Nashadiya explains perhaps even the gods came after that. How the creation began, perhaps we know, we may not know. And that's true, because there was no time for thought process to take part. It didn't exist. So we never know, right, in that sense. So the question comes, after creation, if God was created and you say God controls everything, how did that come about? So I think partly all this is superficial. That's what Shankara is saying, right? And that's the kind of I would stick to that. It's not an easy question to answer, to be honest. And I think this is the biggest struggle that Abrahamic faiths have had. They say God knows everything. He's omnipotent, omniscient, omnibenevolent. If he's all this, then yet he gives us free will to make mistakes. So what is it? It's a question that cannot be answered. It's a very, very subject question with no kind of free proper answer. Sita?
Yeah, no, I think you've covered it amazingly. So, I mean, I think that's what it's sort of highlighting, is that with the Dvait approach and also the approach of other sort of religions as well, when you think of God as a personality with all of these amazing qualities, and you think of all the sort of injustices and all the pain and suffering that's going on in the world, that's when that sort of, in a way, analogy sort of starts sort of to crumble. This idea that there is an ultimate God who is all powerful and all compassionate, that's the point where it starts to crumble. So this is the thing, is that if you are sort of asking those kind of questions, perhaps the Dvait approach is not right for you. Perhaps the right approach for you is the Advait approach, because there the responsibility is laid firmly on your shoulders, because you see the problem, you see the suffering. It's not a God in the sky who is to blame. You are that God, you are that spirit, so you are there, do something about it. So that's the sort of the resolution, in a way, philosophically, is to sort of jump from the Dvait approach to the Advait approach, because you are in charge of your destiny. You're in charge of supporting those around you, trying to resolve any pain or suffering around you, because you are God and there is God in front of you who is suffering. So do something about it. And that's ultimately the most empowering message that you can have. You are in charge of your destiny and you have your own will.
Fabulous. Well, there you have it. We are at almost the top of the hour. We're almost an hour into the broadcast now. Before I end, we talked about different approaches. And I have a question here from Karthik. He's directing his questions to the four of us here on the screen today. And he's asking, can the four of you please tell me which path of moksha that you are pursuing? So maybe this one I will bring the team in. Vijay Bhai, I'll start with you.
Okay, I use three of them, I would say. Although I do a lot of reading of books, philosophy books, I would say I use bhakti, yoga a little bit, and karma. So karma and bhakti are my main drivers, but maybe a little bit of yoga. That's me. So I mix them up, mix and match, right? Like sweets, So that's me. Yeah.
Manish?
Manish Bhai?
Sure. I would say I do a bit of yoga as well. So yoga is my pathway, and I believe in karma very strongly. And I'm quite, devotional by nature as well. So it's like I'm taking all three, and you can mix and match. As Dave I said, as many people, as many paths. So yes, I'm using all these tools to hopefully get there.
Fantastic. So I will share my side of things, then we'll come to Sita Ben last. So I think I am more on the karma side, and maybe you can say Gyan Marg as well, because I do a lot of studying, and I do a lot of reading and take part in lots of different projects for my work as well as other different things. And then I use that knowledge for doing the karma side of things, which is working with various organizations like Hindu Academy and sharing my knowledge and experience over there. And that's my two sides there. I would say I'm more of a sitting on the fence atheist. So definitely not on the Bhakti Marg side at the moment. That may change. Sitaben, over to you.
Yeah, I mean, I think my heart is with Advait. Really, that's where my heart is. I mean, I do morning puja and stuff, but it's more a case of just carrying on the tradition. For me, it's much more about Advait. I love the idea of thinking of everything as spirit, because that gives you such a grounding in life, and it helps you sort of make the right choices in life and do the best for other people rather than putting yourself at the focus of everything, put other people first. And I think for me, that's the best way for me.
Fabulous. So there you have it, Karthik. You now have an insight into how we approach things as well. Now, today's focus topic was about the need for education. And every time I like to close with a quote from Swami Vivekananda. I have come across a relevant quote, though I'm not very sure if it is from him. It's branded as his, but I'm going to share it anyway. It says, we want education by which character is formed, strength of mind is increased, the intellect is expanded, and by which one can stand on one's own feet. And if you let that sink in, that's really, really powerful, because education is like a torch in the darkness. It sheds light on our ignorance and allows us to really stand on our own 2 feet and make up our mind with informed decisions. So with that, I'd like to wish you all a very great week ahead. We look forward to seeing you at 2 o'clock next week, Saturday, as always. Bye-bye for now.